Shalom to everyone. Come on in to the house of Yah. It's going to be all right. We are very thankful, and we say Todah unto the Most High Yah for all of His goodness, His mercy that He has shown upon us, to us, for us, and through us. And so we say Todah to the Most High. We ask that you sit prayerfully on tonight as everybody comes in. And we know some of you will be viewing this as a recording, but we want to say Todah to you for taking the time. And our prayers is that the words that will be spoken, you'll have an ear to hear. And because we're going to be reading, we'll be reading from the Hebrew canon. We're going to be reading the scriptures. We're going to be reading some of the things that were left to us and that has been translated to us in the language that we can hear, read, and understand. But at the same time, we have to realize that our Abba from the Shamaim did not speak English. It's right here in the book. When Shaul was on the road to Damascus and the great light shined down on him, he said it was in the Hebrew tongue. It was in the Hebrew language. Shaul was multilingual. The letters that he wrote were Koine Greek, but Abba Yah did not speak from the Shamaim in Koine Greek. He didn't. He spoke in Hebrew. Yahusha, when he walked the earth, he spoke a Hebrew language, Hebrew dialect. There was different dialects at the time. You had the Aramaic, but I believe that Yahusha spoke Hebrew because the volume of the book was made flesh. It says that the oracles or the word, the Logos, was made flesh and it dwelt among us. And the oracles that came down, the Logos that came down from the Shamaim came down in a Hebrew tongue. And I believe Yahusha, and I'm surprised when a lot of people say Yahusha is Yahuwah, and we know for a fact that Yahuwah spoke Hebrew from the Shamaim, but then when Yahusha shows up, he's going to speak a different language. Doesn't make sense to me. I know there was Aramaic, there was Greek, you had the Roman province, Pontius Pilate, and he spoke Latin or Greek. I'm pretty sure they probably spoke Latin and Greek and probably had an interpreter when they was dealing with those who were speaking the Hebrew tongue, Hebrew dialect. Some people say it doesn't matter. I think with Abba Yahuwah, I believe it does matter. And I don't, I think a lot of the world leaders that we have out there today, Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, Xi Jinping, and some of the others, I think they would be insulted if you called them by a name from another language. I know Vladimir Putin, if you translate Vladimir into English, it's William. William would be the translation of Vladimir. So, how many people call him William Putin? I ain't heard nobody call him William Putin. Everybody calls him Vladimir Putin because you can use the proper names can be spoken in their home dialect. And so we see Yahusha when he was up on the cross, and they had written up there on the stake, they had written, it was written in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. It didn't say Aramaic. It said Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. In the book of Acts, I believe somebody was called the Arab, or it was from Arabia or somewhere, so they could have easily said Aramaic, Greek, Latin, but it didn't. It said Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. And so the reason why I say that is I think if you know what his real name is, I think you should call him by his real name, if you know it. Now, some of us don't know it, and sometimes we went a long time without knowing his language or without knowing his name. We weren't taught to research and find his name, even though it's written in our book, in the book of Proverbs chapter 30 and verse number 4. Proverbs chapter 30 and verse number 4. Was a printer friendly or unfriendly? Was a printer friendly or unfriendly? All right. Proverbs 30 and 4. Who hath ascended up into the Shamaim, or descended? Who hath gathered the wind in his fist? Who hath bound the waters in a garment? Who hath established all the ends of the earth? What is his name? And what is his son's name, if thou can tell? And so he puts you to the challenge through his Torah, his instruction book, the canon, the Hebrew canon. He puts you to the challenge to see if you can find his name. And the reason why a lot of our brothers and sisters don't is because they're institutionalized. Christianity is an institution, and everybody that's in the Christian religion is institutionalized. And you can't think for yourself when you're institutionalized, because when you're institutionalized and you think for yourself, that's a mark against you. They can excommunicate you. They can defund you. They can take your livelihood away. They'll try to leave you poor, broke, disgusted, and can't be trusted, just because you think outside of the institution. That's why I believe that intelligence isn't what you know. Intelligence is when you challenge everything you know. And that's what I do. When I learn something, I challenge it. If I was institutionalized, I wouldn't think outside. I wouldn't be a critical thinker. I wouldn't be a free thinker. I wouldn't be able to think for my own self, because they put you in a box. When you're institutionalized, you're in a box. And you can't get out. Because if you do get out, they'll call you, what did Constantine say? You're a heretic and what's that word? Anathema? Anathema, which means you're a unbeliever. If you think outside of the Christian institution, you're considered anathema. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, and if I'm not, somebody please chime in and let us know, because I want to make sure I pronounce it right. But I'm not institutionalized, so I can be a critical thinker. I can think outside the box. I can think outside of Christianity. I can't, because I'm not institutionalized. In this country, they institutionalize you from the time you're born. They have you wrapped up, tied up in a knot, and don't you dare try to get out. You're forbidden to get out. Because anybody that gets outside of this nation that they call United States of America, and you get outside of that institution, they'll take your livelihood. They'll kill you. They'll take more than your livelihood. They'll take your life. They'll take your life. And so I don't want us, and it might, as things develop and go on, I can become a target. And the reason why I'm not now is because the audience is not so large. I don't have a large audience. But those who have larger audiences, if you think outside of the institution, you become a target. And they'll go after that target. They'll quiet you. They'll take you off the platforms. They'll take you off the platforms. And I want to promote a platform, It's called Hebrew Connect TV, and by Dwayne Harris. And he's the one that started Hebrew Connect TV, and that might be a platform that we're going to go to, especially if they want to take us off Facebook and YouTube. If they want to take us off Facebook and YouTube, you'll be able to find us on Hebrew Connect TV. And it is a platform that is designed for Yasharal, those who are in Yasharal, because when you know that you're in Yasharal and you are Yasharal, you become a critical thinker. You start thinking outside of the institution of Christianity. You're a target, and they'll try to shut you down. There's things that you can say on YouTube, and there's things you can't say on YouTube. There's things you can say on Facebook. There's things you can't say on Facebook. They'll just take you off those platforms. And so that's going to be a platform. I would subscribe to them if you haven't, or at least investigate. Do your investigation. Hebrew Connect TV. It's Hebrew Connect TV. Is that it? Yes, yes, that's right. I seen that too. I probably should put that in our thread. That they were hacked, and they try to get rid of all of the data. They tried to bring them down, and it's so funny that the same time that they were hacked and going through this, Elon Musk was hacked at the same time. At the same time. So there's a connection between there, but he talks about it. I'll put that in the thread, in our Telegram thread. I'll put it out there. Coty Walsh, she's already seen it. I've seen it too. But if we're taken off of these platforms, then that's where you'll find us. We'll be on Hebrew Connect TV. But I'm not institutionalized. I just want y'all to know that. I'm not institutionalized. And when I read and study and I do my research and I challenge what I know, because to me that's intelligence. Because you can know, what's the sense of knowing, having all this wisdom and knowledge, and you don't do nothing with it? You can be intelligent but no wisdom. And so he wants us to have what? More than intelligence, which is intelligence is a part of it, but he wants us to have what? Wisdom and knowledge. He says wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom, but in all of thy getting, get an understanding. Because the companionship of the Most High Yah is understanding. That's that light. And so you got wisdom and you got understanding. And he talks about it a lot throughout the book of Proverbs. In the 8th chapter of Proverbs, he's dealing with wisdom. And you'll find out that he'll use understanding in a female gender. It's feminine because understanding is his companion. It's his companion. He walks with understanding. He's in communion with understanding. He's one with understanding. And so he uses it in a feminine gender if you read it in the book of Proverbs. But I bring out Proverbs 30 and 4 because I'm not institutionalized. You don't have somebody that is confined to what the Christian institution tells you to say. And I'm thankful to the Most High Yah that he is leading me in my research, my studying of the Torah, studying of history, studying something. I'm so glad the Most High Yah is leading me, because we're in a day and a time, and he's going to use people to wake up his people. He's going to use Donald Trump to wake up his people. I know a lot of people are against, there's such Trump hatred in our community, Trump derangement in our community, and people don't realize he's using them. He's using him to wake us up, and there's a lot of things coming. A lot of things coming for Yasharel, and it is going to get uncomfortable. Yeah. He said there's only two genders, male and female. A whole bunch of folks got upset. What are you talking about? You're either born a boy or girl, male or female. Two choices. That's all you have. Yeah. Whatever you're born, that's what's on your birth certificate. That's who you are. And male or female, you got two choices. Mothers only give birth to a male or they give birth to a female. And if you grow up and you don't know what you are, look in the mirror. That's a pretty good indicator. That'll tell you what you are, either a boy or a girl. And so, but yeah, there's things that, and there's some other things that are coming out, and you'll see in the news media, there's things that are coming out. He is making some major changes, and it's happening fast. I mean, it's like some folks are gonna get whiplash. You don't get buckled up and put on the whole armor. You gonna get whiplash because things are happening quick. They're happening quick, and everything is being set up. The way I see it, everything is being set up for us to get out of here. It's and some folks, some Yasharelites, they gonna go out kicking and scratching because they ain't gonna want to leave. But you're gonna be forced to leave. You're gonna be forced to leave because when you see what he's doing in these deportations, he's forcing people to leave. Yasharel is next, or maybe not next, but Yasharel is on the list. Yasharel is on the list. Yeah, right. He's changing constitutional laws. He's also in the military. Anybody heard what he's doing with the military? Y'all didn't hear what he's doing with the military? Yeah, DEI, he took out all the military. He's good, and there's something else he's doing with the military. Because the first one he got rid of was the man of the Joint Chiefs of Staffs. And he wants that's it. He wants a white man army, period. That's all he wants. That's what he wants. So he's getting rid of all the minorities and the blacks and the Negroes. Got to get out of the army. Which we ought to be saying, hallelujah. Why would you want to die? I mean, you want to die in their wars? Mm-mm. He is doing the work of Yahuwah, but we don't realize it because we're not critical thinkers. We think institutionally. That's how we think. And as long as you think institutionally, you're not going to see the picture. You're not going to see it. You're not going to see what he's doing, the reason why he's doing it. You're not going to see that. When you think institutionally, you want to fight him and go against him. And here's another thing that I just heard today. He wants to get back to segregation. Yeah. He wants to get back to segregation. Now huh? She's a foreigner. She's not American born. You can tell with her accent and everything. But Trump's grandfather was an immigrant. He's only like the second generation from immigration, and you got folks with families that's been here for 400 years. Yeah, he's German. Yeah. So, but we can't. Don't be hating on Trump doing that. He is doing what Yah wants him to do, because too many of Yasharelites are too comfortable here. And so what he's going to do is he's going to turn up the heat. He's going to turn it up, y'all. It's coming. It's coming. It's going to get so bad over here, folks are going to want to leave, because you got folks who want to leave already. But it's going to get so bad, folks say, hey, I'm out of here. I'm going. I don't want to be a part of this. Because it's going back to where it was before Johnson and what was that bill that he signed and everything. It's going back before. I mean, we're going way back. That's what Trump wants. And I say, cool. I say, cool. You know, yes. Uh-huh. We need a microphone, but go ahead. Mm-hmm. Um, yeah. I mean, that's just how it's going to be, and we have to realize that, and just keep praising Yah, going on with Yah. Now you go when we go back to segregation, and we got a Coty Walsh here. We're not going to do that. We're not doing that around here. We're not doing that around here. Yeah, yeah, yeah. She's grafted into Yasharel. I'm not doing that. Now, you are going to have some churches that's going to be white only, and you're going to have some churches going to be black only. That's just how it's going to be. But here, I believe the book. I mean, I believe this book, and the mystery that Shaul had when he was going to graft in Gentiles into Yasharel. He said that the wild olive branch, the wild olive tree, has to be grafted into the good olive tree. And he talks about that. So, but I just want to make that point because things are going to get uncomfortable. It's going to get uncomfortable. And you've heard me say in some of our meetings, we got to get into business, and we're making plans. You know, we just have to really prepare for what's coming, because it's coming. And I don't know how much longer we're going to be here before he gathers his people. I believe we'll be here this year, 2025, and we'll have to see what, 2026, 2027. They have a plan. Y'all know President Trump said before the election, he said this will be the last election. Did anybody hear that? He had said that. He said this will be the last election. And everybody's going, what are you talking about? You ain't going to step down after 4 years? But I think he's got 4 years to get all of this stuff in order, what he wants to do. And that's why they jumped off, from day one, start with these major changes and everything. Because he knows he only has so much time to get all of this stuff laid out and in order for what's coming. And so don't get too comfortable here. Now, in our lesson, and as we're preparing for Pesach, and there's a lot of things we have to do as far as examination, self-examination. He tells us to examine to see if you're really in the faith. We'll go over some of that. I don't know about tonight, but that's out there. But there was put in our Telegram chat about Deuteronomy 23. And before we go to Deuteronomy 23, and I was thanking Achots for her question that she asked and stuff, because I don't know if we really read, because I just make it a habit to read Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and just keep reading through there. At least, you should read Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy at least twice in a 12-month period. At least twice in a 12-month period. Now, some of us might read it more, but at least twice, because there's other things I like to read, and I have to be well-rounded, well-balanced. But you definitely need to read it at least twice a year, and maybe we ought to set something up to where we're reading through it, the Pentateuch, the first 5 books, because. Why do I want to read the first 5 books? Why do I want to read the first 5 books? Doesn't matter. We got Christian pastors and teachers telling us we don't have to read the first 5 books. All we got to read is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, or all we have to read is Acts, or just read Paul's letters. You have some people that just want to read Paul's letters, and Paul's letters are not scripture. He prefers to scriptures in a lot of his writings, especially in the book of Romans and in Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians. He's using Hebrew canon scriptures in his letters that he writes to the assemblies, but his letters are not considered scripture. So, but one thing that Shaul does say, I want to start here in Colossians chapter 2. And let's start with 16. Colossians 2:16. And this is before we get into Deuteronomy 23. I want to lay this out there. Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of a holy day or of the new moon or of the Sabbath. Now, where do we learn about meat and drink? Where do we learn about that? About what our meat, they had meat offerings, they had drink offerings. He told us what we are supposed to put in our bodies. Leviticus 11, Deuteronomy 14. So he's saying, let no man judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of a holy day. So where do we find our holy days? Where do we find our holy days? Leviticus, Exodus, Leviticus. It's in Exodus 12, Leviticus 23. It goes through all of our holy days, right? Or of the new moon, because we get that in Exodus and Deuteronomy. We get the new moon. Or of the Sabbath. Now, you can get the Sabbath in Genesis. I mean, you go all the way back to Genesis and you'll find the Sabbath. But listen to what he's saying when he's writing this. Because when you are a institutional Christian, when you read that, you think he's saying, oh, I can eat anything. I don't have to know any of the holy days. I don't have to keep the new moon. I don't have to keep the Sabbath. If you're an institutional Christian, that's what you think. That's not what he's referring to. That's not what he's referring to. Listen to verse number 17. Which are a shadow of things to come. Because notice now, when you start to read 16 is the start of a new sentence. That sentence consists of 16 and 17. That's one sentence. Which are a shadow of things to come. But the body is of the Mashiach. So what is the shadow of things to come? What's the shadow of things to come? Keeping everything in 16. Everything that's in 16 is a shadow of things to come. That's what he's saying. So if we have, because Israelites, they know they have to keep what's written in Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. An Israelite knows they have to keep that. It's the Gentiles who don't know they have to keep it because they're not under that covenant. They're not under that covenant. So what he's telling the Colossians, he says, don't let them judge you. If you're keeping the meat and the dietary laws and the drink, the respect of a holy day, you know, you realize what the holy days are. When he says call a solemn assembly, and forsake not the assembling of yourselves together as a manner of some is. These are our holy days. These are our holy days. The new moon is the first of every month. Sound the shofar, sound the trumpet. It's a new month. And we never lose track. When you do that, you never lose track of the month. If I did that every time there's a new moon, this is the month. The month just started. Because see, we look at the Greco-Roman calendar, and the Greco calendar is different than the Julian calendar. When you see the Julian calendar, and then Pope Gregory changed it, and that's where you get the Greco-Roman calendar. It's named after Pope Gregory. I think it was 14 something, maybe about the 15th century. He changed the calendar. But when you're a institutional thinker, I don't care about Pope Gregory. I don't care about Catholic Church. I don't care about, and you don't realize they're the ones that started that whole religion, and you don't even challenge it. That's a shame when you don't even challenge the Roman Catholic Church. Because people know that if I challenge that Roman religion, they might put me out. And I say farewell. Because Yahusha is not coming back after no religion. He ain't coming back after no organization. He ain't coming back after that. He already told you who he's coming back for. I'm gathering my people from the four corners, from one end of the Shamaim to the other. That means worldwide, he's gathering his people. And he's going to bring them back. And when he gathers his people, those who are grafted into Israel will be gathered along with them. And that's why he told us, the wheat and the tare. The husbandman says, "Should I pull up the tare?" He said, "No. Let them grow together till harvest time, which is at the end. At harvest time, I'm going to get all these tares." And so you're going to find a lot of people are going to be tares. They're not going to be gathered with Yasharel. They're not going to be gathered with them. There is going to be a separation. President Trump, thank you, because he started it, and it's going to get worse. But there is going to be a separation. It's inevitable. Don't be afraid. I ain't moving in fear. I'm moving by faith. I'm moving by faith. I know this stuff has to come to pass. It says, Yahusha said that day and hour when it comes, it's a time that the world has never seen. The world ain't never seen this. What we get ready to go through and what we get ready to see, the world ain't never seen it. This is the first time. And when you see him start dealing with these nations, because he's going to protect Yasharel, he's going to protect his children. But when you see what he starts doing with these other nations, it ain't going to be nothing like it. I mean, we're bombing over there in Yemen, which is on the peninsula of where Saudi Arabia is. You got the country Yemen. You got the Houthis there. They're attacking the USS Eisenhower. I think that's what they have, Dwight Eisenhower. And they're attacking it. We're in war. They don't tell you on the media. You have to dig for that. But yeah, and Trump says, if you keep attacking us, we're going to rain hell down on you. Yeah, that's what. So he's talking big, and then he's making he's threatening Iran and the what is he over there in Iran? Not the president, but not the imam. They call him Ayatollah. The Ayatollah said, "We ain't worried about your threats, Trump." That's what they say. We ain't worried about your threats. You ain't threatening us no more. And there's a lot of rhetoric out there. There's a lot of things going on. Missiles flying. It's a mess over there in Lebanon and Syria and Israel, Palestine. And I mean, it's just a mess. And it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. And then you got Ukraine and Russia. And it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. But verse 17 says, this is a shadow of things to come. But where is the body? The body is of the Mashiach. We're in the Mashiach. we're in the Mashiach. There is a place of protection for us. It's almost like the ark. When Noah was telling the folks, it's going to rain. Rain, what's that? Because the Bible said it had never rained before. They had irrigation where it just came up from the ground, irrigated the land, the crops. I mean, you had the best crops, the trees, because the irrigation, the water came up from the ground. But he said, I'm going to do something y'all ain't never seen before. I'm opening up the windows of heaven. and he said that this day that's coming is going to be worse than that. He's going to do a new thing. But we are of the body of the Mashiach. And that's why you have to get in the Mashiach. And the way you get in the Mashiach is through birth of water and spirit. The repentance and water and spirit, those who are born again, put you into the Mashiach. And that's where we're at. So that's why when he says, which are a shadow of things to come, everything that is written about meat, drink, respect of a holy day, new moon, and Sabbath, all of that is written back there in the first 5 books of the Bible are a shadow of things to come. They're a shadow of things to come. So when you read Deuteronomy 23, let's go to Deuteronomy 23, because this is what was brought up. And Achots, Dolores, I hope you're listening. I hope you're out there and you tapped in and you are listening. All right. There's one thing about Abba Yah. He's going to expose everything. Yahusha come, he's going to expose everything. And there's a lot of people, a lot of our brothers and sisters, they're not critical thinkers. And so when you talk about their Christian religion, they turn you off. They just turn you off. How dare you? Some of them get hot. How dare you? No, and I tell people, just do your research. Think outside the box. Challenge everything you know. Intelligence is not knowing everything. Intelligence is challenging everything you know. Challenge it. Because some of the things I'm learning about Hellenism and going back to Ptolemy the First, let me say this, because a lot of folks don't want to research it, but they had celebrated December 25th and the winter solstice hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years before our Messiah was born. December 25th. That ought to just, wait a minute. I mean, that alone ought to make people think that it was a pagan holiday on December 25th before Yahushua Mashiach was born of Miriam. They call her Mary. They had already done it. Not for a season. I'm talking hundreds of years. I mean, that goes back to Semiramis and Tammuz. Babylon. It goes way back there. And you try to tell our brothers and sisters, hey, y'all, that's pagan stuff. They won't even think critically. Yes. It's yeah. It's a pagan. It don't take much. It doesn't take much. But when you challenge those who are institutionalized, then you got a fight on your hands. Yeah. And they put our Messiah. Well, that picture of him is not our Messiah, but they try to tell us that our Messiah was born on 20. He wasn't. There's no way. There's no way. And Abba Yah will challenge you if you want to be challenged, because wisdom and knowledge, it's there if you want it. It's there. But in Deuteronomy 23 and verse number 1. We'll read down through here. I'm going to read down here a little bit and do a remember that everything that's written is a shadow of what? It's a shadow of things to come. When we read this, it's a shadow of things to come. Because this was given to Yasharel, a nation that came out of Egypt, went into Egypt, a family, came out a nation. And boy, did they multiply in 215 years. They multiplied because the army that they had that came out was 600,000. 600,000 army. That's just young men that was able to fight. That's not talking about your elders, not talking about the women, not talking about all the babies. So they came out, and it was a mixed multitude. They came out. They was more than probably I would say 2 mil, somewhere around there. Because if you got 600,000 army, I mean, they had to be about 2 million some folks coming out of there. Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, they were. It even says that when Pharaoh gave that law to the midwives, if it's a girl, let it live. If it's a boy, kill it. And they just kept growing. So the Pharaoh, what's going on? The midwives came back. They're too lively. They're having the babies before we even get there. They couldn't stop. They couldn't stop them Hebrews from having babies. and was working. They'd be out in the field and have a baby. Have a baby and keep on working. Them some women there. So this is a shadow of things to come. He that is wounded in the stones or have his privy member cut off. Now, wounded in the stones, that's if, people who are working, especially if you worked a lot with oxen and things like that, you're trying to get the yoke on them, or a horse or a donkey. And what are they? What is something that they do? They kick. They kick. And so if you're working with them and you get kicked in the stones, then you were wounded. A lot of times you were deformed. It left some deformity there, and sometimes people will walk one way, they was never able to walk normal again because of an injury like that. So somebody like that, or have his privy member cut off. So if back in those days, who had the privy member cut off? Anybody knows? The eunuchs did. The eunuchs, and they made eunuchs out of men. And the reason why they made eunuchs out of men was, well, there's several reasons, but one in particular, like if you were in the house of your master and he had a number of wives and daughters, he, huh? Right, right. Can't, one way to ensure that I can trust you around my wives and my daughters, if you ain't got no private part, cut it off. So they would just cut it off. So there was no sexual drive. There was, but he says people like that, because in the most eyes of the Most High Yah, when he created you whole. He created you a being. That is less than a being. Now today, people get their private part cut off for what? Sex changes, transgenderism. He said, you ain't getting in. You ain't getting in, and the Christianized institutional thinking will make you think that all these folks can come on up in here and be saved. Yes. No, the congregation is when they would assemble when they did their assembly. Right. Right. Outside. Yes. Right. Right. Exactly. And I know a lot of people might not have heard it, but even in the building of the temple, you had the court for the men, the court for the women, you had the court for the Gentiles, and these people who were wounded or had their private part cut off wouldn't even be able to get into the court of the Gentiles. They would be outside of that, So, and see, the Most High Yah would come and commune with them in the temple. That's a lot of times the smoke, especially when they built the tabernacle, because the tabernacle is different from the temple, because the tabernacle is something they put up and take down as they moved around the 40 years in the wilderness, right? They had the tabernacle. King Solomon, Saluma, is the one that built the first temple. But it said when King Saluma built the first temple and offered up the sacrifices, anybody know what happened? Because we always call it the Shekinah glory. And what is the Shekinah glory? A huge cloud. It was a cloud of darkness that would come down and fill the temple. And they called it the Shekinah glory. And that was the Most High Yah when he would come down and commune with them and accept the offering and the sacrifices. You would see the Shekinah glory. And so people wanted to be in the temple. They're talking about building a third temple over there. I don't. All the stories about them building a third temple. For number one, they're not Israelites. They're not from the 12 tribes of Yasharel, and it's another thing. Another thing I believe. I don't believe that's the real Jerusalem anyway. And another thing is they're going to build it right with the Dome of the Rock, almost in the middle, right next to it or in the middle of it. And it's like, how are you going to build a temple? Because when our temple, well, you couldn't even build a grove outside the temple, even though they tried to bring those groves and trees. He said, I don't even want those outside the temple, not around my temple at all. So but when you got the people faked out and you can tell them anything. When folks are asleep, do y'all know when folks are asleep and unconscious, you can tell them anything. They ain't going to know. You got some folks talking they sleep. You talking your sleep. Talking your sleep. But when you sleep, you're unconscious. Folks can talk to you all day. You won't know nothing. And that's why a lot of people are asleep now, and you can tell them this is going on. These folks and all this, they sleep. They don't care. They sleep. But that's what it meant. Okay. A bastard shall not enter into the congregation of Yahuwah. Even to his 10th generation shall he not enter into the congregation of Yahuwah. Now, what is a bastard? So let's look this up in the Hebrew language, and it's H4464. H4464. H4464 in the Hebrew tongue is mamzer. A mamzer. So let's look at what is a mamzer. The ancient Hebrew lexicon Bible, it gives the pronunciation mamzer. It's a bastard, okay? So we go down to the Brown Driver Briggs, mamzer, bastard, child of incest. Keep that in mind, because when we read down here, it'll be more clear when we read down here. But a child of incest, illegitimate child. What's an illegitimate child? Child born out of wedlock. So you have a child by incest is a bastard. A child born out of wedlock is a bastard. And then mixed population. And then it says born of a Hebrew father and a heathen mother, or vice versa, would be considered a mamzer. Okay? So those are what a mamzer are. Then you go down here to the Strong. Mamzer, from an unused root, to alienate a mongrel. That is born of a Hebrew father and a heathen mother. So, or vice versa, but born of a Hebrew father, or a heathen mother would be considered a mamzer. So he's saying, back to the text, a mamzer shall not enter into the congregation of Yahuwah, even to his 10th generation shall he not enter into the congregation of Yahuwah. And then now verse 3, 4 and 5 kind of goes along with this, so I'm going to read those and see if you can make the connection, because we're talking about a mamzer. Now, a mamzer, the first definition, a mamzer was born of what? No, the first definition, mamzer. Okay. An Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of Yahuwah. Now, who was Ammon and Moab? They were children by Lot's daughter. So they were children by incest. Ammonites, Moabites, children by incest, cannot enter into the congregation of Yahuwah. Even to their 10th generation shall they not enter into the congregation of Yahuwah forever. Now, they weren't allowed to enter into it, but he puts forever on it, because they met you not with bread and with water in the way when you came forth out of Egypt, and because they hired against thee Balaam, the son of Beor of Pethor of Mesopotamia, to curse thee. So for all of that, even unto the 10th generation or forever. Now there's something else in here we're going to read, because it doesn't go as far as even unto the 10th generation. All right? Because, and we have to remember, because a lot of people are saying, is that how it is now? Is that how it is now? But we have to remember that these are we read it, these are a shadow of things to come. It's how it's going to be in the kingdom. This is how it's going to be in the kingdom. He even showed you how the temple was going to build, where everybody's going to be. That's how it's going to be. He declared the end from the beginning. All of this from the beginning is going to how it's going to be at the end. You can read in Ezekiel, what is it, the 40th chapter to the 48th chapter, right around there, which is dealing with the millennial reign and in the new earth and everything. There's going to be a temple, and so there is going to be. You're going to have these different courts. Now, so a lot of people are saying, "Wait, hold it, time out." You know, a lot of people are saying, "Time out." What's wrong? What's wrong with this picture? What's wrong with this picture? I'm gonna ask y'all. Everybody's quiet. Okay, well, we'll keep reading. What's wrong with this picture? Yeah, illegitimate children born out of wedlock. Now notice now, he taught Israel this. Did Israel abide by this? Mm-mm. But he taught them that. He says, this is what I want. This is what I expect out of my people. This is my nation. He told us, don't learn the way of the heathen. Y'all don't do that. Did Israel do it? Yahshua, did they learn the way of the heathen? Oh, yeah. They still do it now. Okay, we have to get, I don't want to give you the answer just yet. I know. I know a lot of us, it's not. I mean, even when you look at this to the 10th generation, what do those kids have to do with it? But a mamzer, especially from the male seed, you know, so, because what's the difference between a male seed and a female seed? Yeah, which is what? What do we call it? The Y chromosome. And it's the Y chromosome that is passed down from father to son, father to son, father to son. Now, a daughter is XX, you know, but it's the father that passes the Y down. And so he does make he's trying to, all of this, everything that's written, when you read Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, when you read that, all of that is written. It's written for our learning, but it's written to warn us. It's to warn us. Because when a child is born, the first teachers in the house is the father and the mother teaching them commandments. That's how it's supposed to be. Let's go to let me show you this. Deuteronomy. We're in Deuteronomy. First, let's go to Matthew, because let's hear Yahusha say it, right? Matthew 22 and verse number 34. Let's hear Yahusha say it. Because, see, a lot of people, even though I'm reading it out of the book, they don't believe it because they've been institutionalized. You're going to hear me saying that a lot because people are institutionalized. Even though I can read it verbatim out of the book, they're not going to believe it. Because even by me saying this and people are listening, I don't believe that. You'd be surprised how many people sitting at home going, I don't believe that. But it's in the book. I don't believe that. But I read it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. So, okay. Well, let's listen to Yahusha. But when the Pharisees, one of them, which was a lawyer, asked him a question, tempting him and saying, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? What's the great one? Yahusha said unto him, Thou shalt love Yahuwah thy El with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. He hasn't got to the 10. He hasn't got to the 10. He said the first one. So when we go to Deuteronomy and read it, that's actually the first commandment. And the second is like unto it, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. And we find that in Leviticus 19:18. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Notice now, he didn't just say law. What did he say? What did he add to that? Because the prophets is also considered law. The prophecy also is considered law. That's why he says in Matthew 5 and 17, Matthew 5:17, that's why he says this. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Listen to what he says. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. As long as we got a heaven and an earth, not one jot or one tittle has passed. So when any preacher says the law is done away with, we don't need the law, it's done away with, they're lying. That is a outright lie. We have to understand why it was written and where we are today. Because I'm not going to lie to you and say it's done away with. The law has not been done away with. The prophets have not been done away with. It's not going to be sealed until he destroys this heaven and earth. And after he destroys this heaven and earth, what's going to happen? You're going to have a new heaven and new earth. But he's not going to destroy this one. It can't be destroyed because it was prophesied there's going to be 1,000 years of peace and he's going to reign. So he says none of that's done away till all of this is fulfilled. All of it's fulfilled. So anybody saying that it's done away with, tell them, yeah, you need to quit lying, man. You know you're lying. What you should be saying is, I don't quite understand how it all fits in. Right now, I just don't have a full understanding how everything fits in, how all of it's going to fall out. But I do know that I have to be born again. I have to repent. I have to be immersed in his name. I have to be filled with the Ruach HaKodesh. I do know that. That's my new birth. And I know I have to live what we always say, a holy and sanctified life. But when you say holy, what you're saying is, I want to be set apart. And he's already set apart his people. He's already done it. All right? So So when Yahusha said that in Matthew 22, let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 6 and verse number, we'll start with verse number 1. Deuteronomy 6 and 1. Now these are the commandments and the statutes and the judgments which Yahuwah your El commanded to teach you, that ye might do them in the land whither ye go to possess it. When you make the kingdom in the land, everything that's written is going to apply. Everything. When you make it to the land, if you make it to the kingdom, that's why you hear me say, if you make the kingdom, you got to give up first day worship. If you make the kingdom. Now, you might not make the kingdom, but you ain't going to make the kingdom and have first day worship. That ain't going to be in the kingdom. So I don't know what you, he also says you're going to keep the feast. And if you don't keep Feast of Tabernacles, all these plagues, the plagues that was mentioned in Zechariah 14, them plagues going to come upon you. Right? That's what it says. I mean, we don't have time to read all those, but I'm in the scripture. We don't have time to read all those. No, the plague that he's talking about was, he already told you up there in that chapter. Because he says you'll be standing on your feet and your flesh will melt right while you're standing there in your eye sockets, in your mouth. It almost sounds like a thermonuclear, but you're going to melt down. Just to keep it simple, you don't keep his tabernacles, you're going to melt down. You're going to melt you down. You don't want to keep my tabernacle? All right. All right. And just like it says in Isaiah, those who transgress against him, he's going to let you see those who don't keep the Sabbath. Oh, you don't want to keep my Sabbath? Let me show you. He ain't got to show me. I'm going to keep it. Because it's already written. It's already written. And these are a sign of things. Okay, so verse number 2. That thou mightest fear Yahuwah thy El, to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command thee, thou and thy son, and thy son's son, all the days of thy life, and that thy days may be prolonged. So, how is my son and then my son's son, how are they going to know these commandments? Got to teach them. You teach them at home. You don't teach them in Sunday school. For one thing, you're going to assemble on the wrong day. And another thing, all it does is give you institutional thinking. They lock you in. They lock you in. And we put our children in them Sunday school and they lock them in. We don't even realize it. Out of that catechism stuff. Because they know how important it is to get that seed planted in that child. We don't know how important it is. Because if we knew how important it was, we would be quoting the 10 Commandments when the baby's in the womb. If we knew how important it was. And it is our responsibility to do that. I guarantee you can go into Christian churches and ask them, give me the 10 Commandments. I guarantee you have folks don't even know them. Don't even know them. I guarantee you. Because I did that here years ago. Some people might not know the order. No bits and pieces. Those things should be memorized. We should know those things. It's just like fruits of the Spirit. You should know those things. Let me go. Let me get my Bible. Let me look up Galilee. Where's it at now? Galilee. Yeah. No, it should roll right off you. If you're a tree and you're bearing that fruit, I know what kind of fruit I'm bearing. Well, you think an apple tree don't know it's bearing apples? It's an apple tree, but he thinks he's orange. So these things that we have to get them, and he says in verse number Verse number 3, that's where I'm at. Hear therefore, O Yasharel, and observe to do it, that it may be well with thee, and that ye may increase mightily, as Yahuwah your El of thy fathers hath promised thee, in the land that floweth with milk and honey. Hear, O Yasharel, Yahuwah our El is one Yahuwah, and thou shalt love Yahuwah thy El with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. So I hope your kids ain't walking with a stranger. Unless you got a stranger in your house, a diligent stranger, sitting in your house, walking in the way, lying down and rising up. I don't want no stranger in my house doing that. No. That's why it's incumbent on the father and the mother, because it's the father and the mother that should be diligently teaching the children. Talk of them while you're sitting in the house, when you're walking by the way, when you lie, before you go to bed, and when you rise up. Because it used to be mothers used to teach us how to pray. My mom did. Had all these little kids, get on your knees, you're going to pray before you go to bed. And told us what to pray. I don't think do they do that anymore? I know my mom used to do that with us. Get all them kids, get on your knees, we're going to pray before you go to bed. But those are things that has to be taught in the home. Okay. So let's go back to Deuteronomy 23. This is why it's so important, and that's why we need to understand what a mamzer is, because and a lot of times that's the reason why he said to the 10th generation or on, because a lot of times, just like he told Solomon, or said of Solomon, he loved a lot of strange women that turned his heart from Abba Yah. And he did not teach this to those strange women and their children. That's a mamzer. Solomon had legitimate children, but he had mamzers too. So when we see it today, man, look at Yasharel, look what we've been doing that. That's just a part of our history. What do you call it, MO or our makeup, whatever it is? I mean, but he's warned us, though. He's warned us and told us. That's why folks got to be born again. I haven't got there yet, but this is verse number 5. Nevertheless, Yahuwah thy Elohim, okay, I read that, right? Would not hearken unto Baalim, but Yahuwah thy El turned the curse into a blessing unto thee, because Yahuwah thy El loved thee. That's talking about Baalim, right? Balaam. Balaam, they say Balaam, but Balaam. Thou shalt not seek their peace nor their prosperity all the days forever. That's pretty strong words, right? So you have to realize that within the camp of Yasharel, you might have some mamzers. But outside, because when he's talking about these people here, these are people outside of the nation of Yasharel. These are people outside. Ammonites, Moabites were outside of Yasharel, but we do have a book written that talks about one Moabite. That's why I said you had some in the camp, but you had many outside. So when he's talking about thou shalt not seek their peace nor prosperity all the days of thy life, that's talking about that nation of Ammonites and the nation of Moabites that's outside of the camp. Because within the camp, you might have a Moabite like Ruth, right? Because Naomi went outside of the camp, right? And her sons from her Hebrew husband, her sons died. Her husband died and her sons died. So she was going to go back to home. She was going back to homies. She was going back to homeboys, or what do you call them? I mean, what do we say now? She's going back home, or going back to her people, or she's going back. And so she told her daughter-in-laws, "Y'all might as well go on. I ain't no more boys coming out of this womb." Pretty much what she said. She said, I ain't giving birth to no more boys. Y'all going back. But Ruth said, I'm not gonna leave you. And she was a Moabite. So that Moabite came into the camp, and she said, "Your people are my people, and your El, he's my Yah." That's what she said, even though she was a Moabite. Now, she couldn't get in the congregation, but she did something better than that. Right? Yeah. She gave birth to Jesse, because I think she married Boaz, and gave birth to Jesse, which was David's grandfather. David's father or grandfather? I think it was his grandfather. Father? Okay. I had to look at that up again. Yeah, because you had Boaz, and Boaz and Ruth gave birth to. Somebody can look it up. Anyway, um, so that's what it's dealing with there. So everybody got a clear understanding of that? Okay. Verse number 7: Thou shalt not abhor or hate a Edomite, for he's thy brother. So it says you're not supposed to hate him. Even though, a lot of times the Edomites were against, and it does show later on, and especially in prophecy, they were against Yasharel, but Edomites are going to be judged. They're going to be judged. It talks about it in Amos, talks about it in Obadiah. Edomites are going to be judged. For he said, "Thou shalt not abhor an Egyptian." Why? Because thou was a stranger in his land. And there were Egyptians in the camp. Because in Leviticus 26, I think it's Leviticus 26 or Leviticus 24. Yeah, they came out of mixed multitude. But in Leviticus 24, I think it is, where this boy who had a Hebrew mother but an Egyptian father, and he was taking the name of Yahuwah, he was cursing the name of Yahuwah. And so they said, well, what shall we do with him? They brought him to the judges, and what did they do to him? They had to stone him. They stoned him. Yeah. Because he said, don't mess with, you don't mess with the name now. You don't be, So his father was an Egyptian and his mother was a Hebrew. They came out of mixed multitude. So he says, you're not supposed to hate an Egyptian, because I was a stranger in the land. The children that are begotten of them shall enter into the congregation of Yahuwah in their third generation. Now, why isn't this the 10th generation, like the Mamser or Ammonite or Moabite? Why is it here it's just the third generation? Usually when it talks about like this, in this instant here, traditionally, and I'm just going by, some things I've read traditionally, that if they're in the camp and it's done right, you encourage Israelites to marry Israelites, and so by the third generation, you should have Israelites marrying, and that's how you get back to, if you have a mixed person and you try to get them Israelite. Well, after 3-4 generations, whatever like that, then hopefully you're back to where you're supposed to be, because Edomites, Edom or Esau came out of the same womb as Jacob. They were actually brothers. They had the same father, same mother, but Jacob's Y chromosome and Esau's Y chromosome was different, because the angel said you have two manner of people, or two nations in you, in your womb. Even though they had one father, um, Isaac or Yishak, the Y DNA, the Y chromosome was different, and that's why you can trace the Y DNA of a Jacobite or Israelite or Yasharel, Jacobite. That Y DNA is different from Edom Y DNA, because in the womb there, Most High Yah did something different. He said, I'm splitting it, so that you don't have the same. And a lot of times, if you don't have the same Y DNA, the haplogroup is a little different. And the haplogroup is a lot of your outside physical characteristics. They look different because you're dealing with the haplogroup. But okay, so the third generation. Now, verse number 9, and Achoti back there in the media, if I got questions or something, kind of let me know, because I'm trying to follow that chat to see if there's any questions, huh? If any questions around here, yeah, you have to give them the mic. Okay, I'm not going to have much time left. Let's hear him go through this. When the host goeth forth against thine enemies, this is the military, then keep thee from every wicked thing. If there be among you any man that is not clean by reason of uncleanness that chanceth him by night. Anybody know what he's talking about here? It's kind of obvious. Yeah, and what do we call them? Or if okay. No, listen. If there be among you any man that is not clean by reason of uncleanness that chanceth him by night. What do we call those? No? Huh? No. That chanceth him by night. What if you at night and you have one of those? Yeah, that's what it's talking about here. Yes, that's what it's talking about. So if you have, like, if a male, you're out there and you have a wet dream, and you've emitted, it's a wet dream. He says, then shall he go abroad out of the camp, he shall not come within the camp. But it shall be, when evening cometh on, he shall wash himself with water, and when the sun is down, he shall come into the camp again. So that's what you do with somebody who has one of those wet dreams. Because we're talking about soldiers, the host, when they go out, because they're going out in the field, they leave their wives, if they're married, they leave their home. And so listen to this. This is showing you the character of our Father, Abba. Now, a lot of times you can't help, or some men, nowadays you have to be careful what you watch, because what you watch on TV and stuff, a lot of that stuff gets it's imprinted in your mind and everything. Back then, they didn't have what we have today. They didn't have HD TV. They didn't have all these programs, all this stuff, So, but those things still happen to the young men. But this is how Abba Yah deals with it. He didn't kill them. You're sleeping at night. You had a wet dream. This is what you have to do. You got to go outside the camp. It looks like a 24-hour period. You had to wash yourself real good. Then he says, at evening cometh on, he shall wash himself with water, and when the sun is down, he shall come into the camp again. So, sounds like from sundown to sundown, you were without the camp. You were outside the camp. All right. Or it happened that night. You go out of the camp. He shall not come into the camp, but at evening cometh, he washes himself. So that whole day you're outside the camp, probably repenting, right? Then you wash yourself, in water, and then when the sun goes down, you can come back in the camp. Now, thou shalt have a place also without the camp, whither thou shalt go forth abroad. Listen to this. And thou shalt have a paddle upon thy weapon. And it shall be, when thou wilt ease thyself abroad, thou shalt dig therewith, and shalt turn back, and cover that which cometh from thee. What is he talking about? Yeah. Right. You didn't have they weren't modern. They didn't have all the stuff like what we have. So when our young men are out to host and stuff, and, they probably still do that today, because you don't want the enemy to know. A lot of times especially if you're stealth or if you're a team or something and you're out spying, you're doing a reconnaissance, and you don't want the enemy to know that you've been there, because if they see human feces and stuff, they were here, and they be able to follow. So but that's not the reason why he told them to do it. He tells you when we read it, but he told them, make sure you have a pad on your weapon, and when you have to relieve yourself, dig a hole, relieve yourself, then get the dirt, cover it back up, right? Then listen what he says. For Yahuwah thy El walketh in the midst of thy camp, to deliver thee and to give up thine enemies before thee, which means he's going to fight for you. He's going to fight for you. Therefore shall thy camp be holy. When we do things decently in order, and we're not like animals, he gives us sanitation and stuff, that sets us apart. Holy means Kodesh, which means set apart. You're not an animal, even when we're out in the field. Even when we go camping, we go tabernacling, and you might be on the trail, and you might have to relieve yourself. Make sure you don't just. That's if you want Yah in the midst of the camp. That's what he says, right? I think I read that in the book. For Yahuwah thy El walketh in the midst of thy camp to deliver thee, and to give up thine enemies before thee. Therefore shall thy camp be holy, that he see no unclean thing in thee, and turn away from thee. That little bit can turn Abba Yah out of the camp. What do you think sometimes we wonder, why isn't Yah, where's Yah at here? He's giving you specific detail. I won't even come amongst you if you do that. That's our Abba. So when people live such raggedy lives, and we think, oh, he's going to look past it. It don't matter. He'll look past it. You don't know Yah. That's why I tell a lot of people, you really don't know him. Exactly. He wants you to be clean. Wash your hands. Wash your feet. We even have foot washing. You got to wash them feet sometime. But that was the lowest servant of the house. When guests come over, because they didn't have Nikes like we have Nikes or boots. They did have boots for military and stuff like that, but they didn't have Nike and stuff like we have. They had sandals. Their feet were open. They had sandals, and so when you come into the house, feet all dirty. No, wash your feet first. So they would have somebody who washed their feet. So it was the lowest servant of the house that would have to do it, because it was a humiliating thing. Can you imagine somebody coming in, dusty feet, been out walking for days, dusty feet and everything? What do you think they feet smell like a couple tulips? Or what's that purple lavender? You think they feet smell like that? No, them dogs will stink. Dirty and probably crusty and dirty. Wash them feet. Wash them feet. So because that's how Yah wants us to be washed. He wants us to be cleansed. Yah is very particular. And we think, oh, he'll accept anything. No, he won't. Yah, when somebody tells you, oh, he'll accept anything. No, he won't. He won't accept anything. That's why we have to, even in our appearance, when we step out of the house. Now, when you're in your house, you got your windows closed, you in your home, your bedroom, you can run around the house, do it. But when you go outside your house and you're seen of people, you need to present yourself like you represent Abba Yah. Everything decently and in order. That's why our sisters shouldn't be stepping out of the house showing everything. You ain't supposed to do that. Not if you're Yah's daughter. Well, that's right. So we'll see that. Verse number 15. I'm going to have to hurry up because we're almost done. Thou shalt not deliver unto his master the servant which is escaped from his master unto thee. He shall dwell with thee, even among you, in that place which he shall choose in one of thy gates, where it liketh him best. Thou shalt not oppress him. So this is dealing with if you got a servant. Now, like I said, this is a shadow of things to come. When you're living in the kingdom, when you're living, even now, I mean, we don't have servants or anything like that, but if you have servants and stuff, and their servant was unhappy with their master, and they left their master, and they coming into your camp or wherever your city is, and they don't want to go back to their master, let him dwell there. Let him dwell there. That's what it says. Don't oppress them. The reason why they're there is because they were oppressed. So don't oppress them. That's the thinking of Abiyah. Okay, verse number 17. There shall be no whore of the daughters of Yasharel. You want no whores? Wherever whores are, you have whoremongers. Wherever there's a whole bunch of whores, you're going to have whoremongers. He says, there shall be no whore of the daughters of Yasharel. That's why our daughters, when they present themselves outside the house, don't be looking like no whore. Cover up. Don't be showing all that. No, I want to show my stuff. I want to be sexy. That's not, that's the wrong way of doing it. Abiyah ain't got nothing against the appeal that a woman has for a man. He doesn't have that. The woman has a certain appeal with a man. He's not against that. He says you just don't practice that outside. You don't go outside the home and amongst and do that. You don't do that. You get married, and y'all tear it up. Do what you want to do when you get married. But don't be a whore. He says, there shall be no whore of the daughters of Yasharel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Yasharel. This is what I was looking for the other day, because a paramour, Paramour, a paramour is a male prostitute, and a lot of those male prostitutes would dress up in feminine to look very feminine because they were prostituting themselves, not for women, for men. And so when you see men coming up in these assemblies looking like women and prostitutes, no, Abiyah ain't in that. He's not in that. Nor a sodomite of the sons of Yasharel. No son of Yasharel should be selling himself to another man. Because he tells us if a man lies with mankind like he does womankind, it's abomination. That's it. It's abomination. Okay, thou shalt not bring the hire of a whore or the price of a dog into the house of Yahuwah thy El for any vow. The hire of a whore. So here this woman who played the role of a harlot and got paid, you don't bring it into the house of Yah. You don't give it to him for a vow. You don't give the price of a dog. I don't even want the price of a dog. For even both these are abomination unto Yahuwah thy El. Because some folks talk about, what if they win the lottery? Well, do something good with it. Give me some. But you can't bring it up here for like a tithe or a vow. I want to make a vow unto Yah. And let's say it's a woman out there who wants to make a vow unto Yah, and she sold herself for that money. Y'all said y'all needed some money. I went and played the whore. Now I want to make a vow unto Yah and give it to Yah. You ain't supposed to take that. You ain't supposed to take that. Huh? Why would she even say that, huh? Yeah. I mean, but some people do. We got folks, because we're going on a drive. We need such and such thousands of dollars. We trying to build, and you got some folks out there listening. Man, got no money. I know how to make some money though. And she go out and make some money and come in. You wanted us to give a seed offering or make a vow of $1,000? I got 1,000. Yeah. Because if she got that off of whoredom, you ain't supposed to accept it. Now you got a lot of people with the mindset or institutional Christian thinking that will say, well, they had it long enough, might as well bring it on in here. Abba Yah says, it's abomination. No, you go earn money right way. Make it righteous. Do it the right way, and then bring it up here. He don't want you done laid on your back and made that money. You want to bring it up in here? You know what that sounds like? As if Yah is a pimp. That's what it sounds like, right? I mean, because that's what a pimp does, right? The pimp gets the money off the women. Yah ain't no pimp. He said, no, that's abomination. Thou shalt not lend upon usury to thy brother. Off of an Israelite. If an Israelite comes to borrow some money or whatever, you let them borrow it, and they pay back what they borrow. No usury. Unto a stranger, thou mayest lend upon usury. Now, if they ain't an Israelite, then you can charge them interest. But unto thy brother, thou shalt not lend upon usury, that Yahuwah thy El may bless thee in all that thou settest thy hand to in the land whither thou goest to possess it, because this is a shadow of things to come. So we practice it now. When thou shalt vow a vow unto Yahuwah thy Elohim, thou shalt not slack to pay it, for Yahuwah thy El shall surely or will surely require it of thee, and it shall be sin in thee. So if you make a vow unto Yahuwah thy El, you better pay that vow. He expects you to pay the vow. Because he says if you don't, it's going to be sin unto you. But if thou shalt forbear to vow, it shall be no sin in thee. So what he's saying is, if you don't make a vow, then it's not sin. Because you know how sometimes everybody in here going to make a vow. Make a vow of $100. Make a vow of $500. You don't have to make a vow. That's not sin, because they'll try to tell you, if you don't make a vow, that's you in sin. No, I ain't. Not if you know the book. Now, if you don't know the book, you'll go on and listen to them. You'll listen to them preachers and everything, and you'll sit there and feel so guilty like you in sin because you didn't give them. Because you don't. That's because you don't read the book. There's offerings I give it. Don't tell me to make a vow if I don't feel comfortable in making that vow. I ain't going to make it. You ain't saved. You ain't saved. No, but see, I know the book. I can read the book. That's why I would sit over there and I'm going, I'm not going to make that vow. I'm not going to make that vow. I would say that. I'm not going to make that vow. Because I knew that if I made the vow, I would have to pay it. But if I don't make the vow, it's not sin. I knew that. And so, but a lot of times we're so captivated by leaders, we don't know the book. We're just captivated by leaders. They're good talkers. We trust them. But we're afraid of them. They got heaven. You feel pressure, and you feel that everything they say is the book. So if they said it, it must be heaven because the preacher said it. But what it's telling me is you ain't read the book. You ain't read the book. That's why we all have to read the book. Okay, it won't be no sin unto you. That which is gone out of thy lips, thou shalt keep and perform, even a free will offering. Whatever you speak, you're going to say. You got a question? Go ahead. You have to say that in the microphone. Turn the mic on. Say it with the microphone on.
No one's raising their hand.
Okay. All right. No one's raising their hand. Nobody. I guess they don't have a question yet. Okay? When they get a question, all right, I want to finish this up because we're about done. All right? According as thou hast vowed unto Yahuwah thy Elohim, thy El, which thou hast promised with thy mouth, whatever you speak. When thou comest into thy neighbor's vineyard, then thou mayest eat grapes, thy fill at thine own pleasure, but thou shalt not put any in thy vessel. So if you're going through your neighbor's field and there's grapes or whatever, and I'm hungry, I'm going to eat some grapes. You eat some grapes, but then keep on walking. You can't bring I got a pot, and your pot will take a whole vine. That's wrong. That's wrong. It ain't even yours. It's your neighbor's. No, if I'm hungry, usually I'm not hungry, but I'm hungry today, and you have that. That's not a sin. When thou comest into thy standing corn of thy neighbor, then thou mayest pluck the ears with thine hand, but thou shalt not move a sickle unto thy neighbor's standing corn. So, if you're hungry, you just pluck off the ear and you eat it. Because usually if you eat one of those corn stalks, because Sister Walsh, Coty Walsh brings it a lot of times when we have our summer grilling and stuff. If you eat one of them, usually you don't need to eat 10 of them. My goodness, how many have you had? Oh, there's 1, 3, 4 husks. I want another one. That ain't right. Yeah. According to this, you might not see them, I guess, or they might not be there. Or if he does see you, he might watch you. I'm seeing if he's just going to eat for him just to fill his stomach, or if he's trying to get his sickle and take down the whole stock, If they're hungry, you should feed them. Yeah. Yeah, if they're hungry. Because usually these people walk through the field, because it even says, not in this chapter, but in another place, it says you don't glean, it's time for gleaning and harvesting, you don't glean the corners. You leave that for the poor and the needy. So when they come through there, they see the corners, they can eat. Because you should want to feed the hungry. And we usually try to feed the hungry. Now folks come around here, they want money. No, we'll get you some food. But a lot of times they want money. It ain't just food they want. They want money. But, if somebody's hungry, you should feed them. Yeah, feed them. Because he even says, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me to drink. When I was in prison, you visited me. But if you don't do that, then he's going to recompense you. Okay, any questions? That's that's Deuteronomy 23. So, because the question says, do we still live by these things? These things are warnings for us. Some of these, when we just read through there's some we can keep, and there's some we can't keep, right? There's some of it we just can't keep. So I'm not under that. I'm not worried about that. But what I can keep, I should keep. When I read that, it is telling me, because one thing, Abba Yah likes cleanliness. It says it right here. I'm not coming through the camp. You want me to fight for you? You better bury your mess. Cover it up. But you might see, here's, we don't have time. No, we don't have time. But because when he says, I'm going to walk through, what is that? When he says, I'm going to walk through the camp, and you're going to want me to fight for you and deliver you, that's the reason why I want you to be holy. But when he said he's going to walk through the camp, and you said he might step on something, what are you talking about? Huh? I know, but how could Yah step on it? Huh? He knew you was guilty? Oh, you knew he was guilty. Now did Abraham see Yah? Yeah, they did. They seen him. But he says, I'm going to walk through the camp. That, y'all know, he appeared to his people. He had to appear to Abraham more than once, because when he seen him, we just read it in the, is that the 14th chapter? We just read it there. No, the 18th chapter. It's the 18th. We read in Genesis 18, he knew it was him when he seen him. Because when he came to his tent, let me go fetch it, let me dress it up, let me get out, are you going to stay to eat? He knew it was him. How did he know it was him? He had to have seen him more than once. And I think Abba Yah, a theophany of Yah, would walk in the midst of the camp with them. Now, okay, we'll finish up. So the question was, Akoti, the things that we can keep in it, because there's some things when you read through here, there's some things you can keep, and you should take that to heart. But a lot of this is a shadow of things to come. He wanted this for his people, but did his people keep it? They didn't keep it. But when Yahusha sets up his kingdom for 1,000 years, it's going to be written on our hearts and our mind. We're going to keep it all. It's going to be kept, because he says this heaven and earth will not be destroyed until all of this is fulfilled. So he has to have a nation of people that's going to keep his law. He has to have it. And he is going to have it. Now for us, there's things that we can keep that we should keep. But we don't teach this. So a lot of times when we read through here, oh, that doesn't matter. That doesn't apply, because we don't teach it. But what we can teach, this I can do. I don't know no Ammonite or Moabite. But another thing is the congregation of Yasharel, that's when we all get together. Yasharel is scattered to the four corners. The congregation is split. It's all over. So when I read this, I'm going, I know it's telling me about Yah. He's telling me about what he wants in the kingdom. What can I do? Because this is a shadow of things to come. And that's how I look at it. That's how I read it. When I read it, there's some things I don't know. I don't know no Ammonite. I don't know no Moabite. I don't know. I'm not even worried about that. I'm worried about what I can do. That's what we should be looking at, what I can do. Because even when it comes to vows and stuff, I'll say a vow if I can keep it. If I know I can't keep it, I ain't going to say it. And if I don't say it, it ain't no sin. The sin is if you say it and you don't do it. That's a sin. Hey, and usually when I do marriages and I like to counsel them, and let's talk about it, because this thing is, when you talk about marriage, you're talking about something important. You're talking about making a vow. You got to keep that vow. And we just take it so randomly, and people don't realize. Yeah, you got to keep them vows. All right, any questions out there? Anybody raise their hand? Any questions? All right. Any comments? Anybody got any comments? She got a comment?
I was thinking about, when you were reading through those things, that a lot of things we did because we did not know, we didn't understand, we weren't taught that way, so we did a lot of that, made those vows and did all that stuff, but,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
it's-
And a lot of it is because we weren't taught,
yeah,
which is ignorance. And there was an offering for ignorance. He would forgive for ignorance. That's in Leviticus, the 5th chapter. He talks about ignorance. So if there's, man, I didn't know, but now I know. So
even with the marriage, the vow of marriage, and then I've been divorced, so, yeah.
yeah, and so he does forgive us for ignorance. But once I know, I can't use that. I can't use that card again. It's almost like he takes that card out of our deck.
But I know now.
You know now.
I know now.
I know now. I didn't know then, but I know now. So I can't. That's why he told the woman, he said, I ain't going to condemn you. I know what the act that was done was a sin unto death. There's no There's no sacrifice or offering you can give. There's no sacrifice for that. He knew that. He says, but I'm not going to condemn you. Just don't do it again. That's what he said. Don't do it again. I forgive you this time. I don't know about the next time. That's why he says don't do it again. So he does forgive on ignorance. And there's a lot of things we weren't taught. A lot of things we weren't taught. But he's going to have even in Isaiah, it's time to go, I know, but Isaiah 9 and 6 and 7, he says the government is going to be upon his shoulders. A government, you can't have a government without law. What government out there that ain't got no laws? Yeah, the institutionalized Christian ain't got no laws. And actually, there are some laws. It's just that it's the laws that the church calls standards. You know, these are our church standards and our bylaws and stuff. You know, but what about his law? What about his book? Because that's what we're going to be judged on. He going to open up his book. He ain't open up your book is the life that you live. He's going to open up your book and compare it to his book. But when he opens up my book, I want him to see the blood of Yahusha. That's what I want him to see. And then we see that in Revelations 5 and 9, because it talks about those who have been purchased by his blood. So even though when I read through Deuteronomy 23 and I'm listening, I can't, all of this is not even applicable. A lot of it's not even applicable. Am I worried about it? No, I'm not even worried. It's not applicable. What is applicable, I can do better on if it's taught in the right way. But those who have been purchased by the blood of Yahusha, like it says in Revelations 5 and 9, those are the ones that gets to reign with him. Now, if you're reigning with him as kings and priests, you're the one telling folks to come to the congregation. And this is how it is going to be done. Because you have to realize that there's going to be cities and lands and nations all over the land. But Yasharel gets to rule over all of them. Yahusha is going to be on his throne in Jerusalem. What about way on the other side? Well, he's going to send his people out there. Even in that one parable, I think it's in Luke, and he talks about the one that had the talent, and he increased it. He says, I'm going to give you 10 cities. 10 cities to rule over. So you teach them. If you're reigning as a king and a priest, you're telling them about the congregation and when to congregate and everything. You ain't worried if you a half Moabite or if you half Yasharel. You ain't worried about that. You're reigning with them as a king and priest. You're telling them this is how we congregate. You an Ammonite, Moabite, you can't get in. Well, what about you? I'm already here. I'm reigning. Yeah. But, okay, we're going to say shalom, shalom, everybody. Thank you for coming in. Sorry to keep you so long. Try to keep these things shorter if I can. But I do want us to realize that things are going to get rough. We better really prepare ourselves. It's not going to be pretty.